I mean, like, I always put it this way where it's like you know, this is where like the word minority feels really real because you're like, there are just fewer of us, you know? There's like the majority, there's the minority, you know? So it's just like quite simply, there's fewer of us. And then you're like, okay, so who are the Muslims I know? My parents, right? And then I'm a kid and my parents are my enemy half the time. Right. So, and then everyone's like, you know, and Muslims are the enemy. And I'm like, well, these guys have already been like telling me to clean my room when I don't want to. These guys, like, I kind of have some beef with them to begin with. I love them, but you know, they're difficult. And now there's a larger case being made against them. You know, where do I fall? What side am I going to be on? And obviously, you know, joking aside, it was just this you know, this fear of like not knowing. You know, there's just this not knowing, and you know, when you don't have information and everything's very emotional, that self-fear was a part that I didn't realize for a really long time, and then, you know, I think it for me created ultimately an intimacy with my faith and intimacy with the various communities that I'm a part of, because there was that fear. And then I was like, well, wait, is that true? And then realizing, of course, it's not true, that, you know, the way we're being painted has nothing to do with who we actually are and how we live. But there was like a closeness that ended up being created in that quest to figure that out that I'm actually really appreciative of, you know, just that thing of like, going through those experiences. But, you know, being in middle school at the time, it was wild.
So you said you didn't have maybe any other Muslim friends, is that right? Or like there were just a few other families you knew?
It was like 2 families in our town. And then it was, there was like a couple people we kind of knew, but it wasn't, you know, we weren't in the middle of a community. I know people who move to the States, but then they like, a bunch of people from their home country get, you know, spots in the same community and they all go to the same activities and do all that. We weren't part of that.
Okay,
that wasn't what we had going on. Yeah.
So it was maybe like, I know that for like a young white kid during this time period, happens to be the same time, but just middle school is like, I'm trying to think of what I might have thought about identity. And I think one of the strange things about whiteness is that it has the myth of like not being an identifier, you know, it's like, it's the sort of the myth of a universal identity. And now I think like our current middle schoolers are thinking so much about identity, you know, so there's kind of like opposites there. And I'm just wondering maybe if this was like it must have added a new dimension to the way you were thinking about identity. Right? I mean...
Yeah, it did. I mean, like, I already had I think it was already front and center just by, like, not doing Christmas, which is very traumatic. It's, like, deeply, like, whoa, you know, I mean, this is big, you know, like, so when you're young and you know the truth about Christmas, it's, like, a really big burden because you kind of can't tell anybody.
The truth?
Yeah, the truth.
Is it about Santa or Jesus? Which one?
It's about Santa. We rock with Jesus. We do. We rock with Jesus.
Of course.
Yeah. There's some, like, different specifics we have on but,
no, and I actually do know that. I want to clarify.
Yeah.
We are Baha'i. All 3 of us happen to be Baha'i. Have you ever heard of the Baha'i faith?
Of course.
Okay, is this true, Nava and Sophie? I don't think you grew up with Christmas either.
No. Yeah, and I grew up in Puerto Rico, which is intensely Christian.
They love Christmas.
There aren't even like Muslims or Jews really. There's like a few, not in my school. So I was the only other religion, and it was very strange to not celebrate.
Yeah, I spent my formative years in the Philippines, which is like very Catholic, very Christmas heavy. So yeah, when you said it's kind of traumatic, I was like,
I feel you.
Oh, right.
Right
I mean,
there
just
with
like
you.
to not go like, and then you. Yeah, you feel cynical, and you know it's like you don't have an imagination. Yeah, and then and you can't say it. I remember being pulled like a teacher was like, "Dude, you gotta stop.
Wow,
you gotta stop saying." And I'm like, "Saying what?" You know, she's like, "That Santa's not real." I'm like, "But he's not." And she goes, "Yeah, I know, but." Let's just keep it down. And I'm I'm getting in trouble for telling the truth. I mean, this is crazy. And the thing is, there's like real life is magical. Yeah, like a small seed,
I couldn't agree more.
Becomes a tree.
Yes.
Why do we gotta say this like big dude goes through the chimney? The parents don't get credit for like maxing out their credit cards. The whole thing is dark. Like it doesn't make any sense.
I fully agree. So all right,
and still have Christmas. It's just the Santa part. Why?
Right.
You know,
we're gonna name this episode "Taking Down Christmas" with Ramy Youssef.
No, but the problem is that'll be really volatile because then there's a war against Christmas, which is a whole other.
It will be great numbers for us, so you will fall under
thank you,
the
Ramy.
bus. Under there, we're just.
I don't want to be part of the war. Okay, here's what I'll say. In terms of the war against Christmas, I don't like happy holidays. I like Merry Christmas, especially when it's Christmas week.
Right, because of what other holidays?
What other holidays are there? Just the week of Christmas.
Sometimes though it will be Hanukkah.
Sometimes it'll be Hanukkah. But I know my friends who do Hanukkah. I know my friends who do, you know what I mean? So I guess it's like, okay, maybe if you're Macy's, you gotta say it, but don't say happy. Let's just say Merry Christmas.
Yeah, that's fair.
So just for anyone out there who might think I have a war against, I really don't have a war against Christmas. I say it's against Santa. Who is not in the text.
Yeah, who's not real.
Santa's not in the text.
None of them.
So if we want to get textual,
there's
no issue with what I'm saying.
I'm curious, you describe feeling a more intimacy with your faith and with your culture. And that's so interesting to me. I feel like you can go one of two ways. If you feel like you're not fitting in with the mainstream, you can either eschew what makes you different, or you can embrace it and become really close to it. And I wonder, at that young age, I think it's tempting to try to fit in. And so what was it in your life? What did your parents do? What was it in you that sort of pushed you to just become closer and more intimate with the things that made you different?
Yeah, I think you're totally right. There's sometimes this wanting to erase. And I just knew that felt really incorrect. I just knew there was too much love I had felt in those spaces.
That's cool.
And so I said, okay, well, I'm scared. I have, this is like I know I'm young and I feel this information issue but so it kind of set me on a bit of a fact-finding mission where I was like, okay, I'm scared. It's created a self-fear, but I also feel like that's probably off too. I just need to know the truth, And so, and again, I think the thing that I also felt was just watching the news and seeing everything, I did know, these are the same people who also propagate Santa. So they're probably lying about this too.
Yes.
I mean, that's true. It's a
amazing.
good joke, but it's also true. That's why I didn't laugh, because I was appreciating the profundity first. You're not wrong.
I tried to just get it out.
You're not.
At 10, he already knew that late-stage capitalism was ruining everything.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on the Christmas industrial complex.
I have two follow-ups. What was your relationship like with your family? You made the joke about sort of hating them and loving them, but what was it like? And tell us more about your faith. Sort of it seems to be a really prominent part of your life. Is it something that you felt early on? Did you ever struggle with your Muslim identity? I'd love to hear more about that.
I have the best parents. They're awesome. They're, my favorite thing about my parents is that anything that bothers me about our relationship or anything that happened as a kid was truly just well, they didn't know. You know what I mean? It's just we all it's so clear, and it's you don't and I think it's also interesting too when you look at grandparents, because it's you look at grandparents and you look at parents and you look at how your parents parent, and then you can get a vibe off your grandparents, and then you're and I love my grandparents and they did the best they knew, but it's you kind of look at it and I was always oh man, my parents are dope. They do things really different from both their sets of parents. So I really appreciated that. And then any frustration, I was well, not everyone can do anything, can do everything. I mean, and so I definitely always had this deep respect for where they were at and what they were trying to do. And, especially, just not being from this country. Right.
Yeah.
And then I think just the simplest way I can even put the faith relationship was since I was a kid, knew there is this, I loved praying. I just loved this private conversation with God, and I knew
Penn is
that I
falling
do
in love
that.
with you.
I'm just I do.
Penn loves
that's
you,
real.
Ramy.
Dude,
that's so real. How is that not?
I knew it. I knew it watching your show. I knew it. I was just there's no way this man won't say this today.
Of course.
And they even laughed at me because I had a question about that
he does. He does.
Yeah.
It's just it's just beautiful to hear somebody say that unabashedly, because you just don't hear it that much.
Sure.
And as a
Or people say it and apologize.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
that unapologetic, just clear, direct faith, and that can mean so many things.
It can mean so many things, but it's like, look, like we all have a relationship with the unseen,
Yeah.
right? And so to me, prayer is this really beautiful, faithful, leading with love connection to the unseen, as opposed to sitting in like only my fears and anxieties, which is also like sitting in your fear and anxiety is a form of praying because you're just sitting with
In
the
your mind.
unseen.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
You're just sitting
yeah.
you're sitting with what you can't see,
Yeah.
right? But it's like, what version of sitting with what you can't see do you want to have? And so it's like, do you want the one that's aspirational? Do you want the one that's like building something that is,
Yeah.
has accountability and has love and has, and I don't blame people for not saying it really openly just because,
Totally, yeah.
Like religions become like a dark business.
Yeah, very
So
much.
it's like I'm not, the last couple swings at it, the immediate, I would say, preceding generations, not great, so I'm totally, I get the landscape, but also to me, this is real.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?